Hello everybody, how are you doing? Good, I hope. It's now been a few months since Marvel Rivals was announced. We've had a few character reveals and even a couple betas. I even got into one. And because I got into one, I now feel a crippling addiction to this game manifesting within the very core of my existence. Luckily, we now have a release date, so the wait will be slightly more bearable now. And while we wait for that blessed day to arrive, I decided to have another go at talking potential characters. Now that I've played the game extensively, I now have a better understanding of the game and its mechanics. So this time around, I'll be fitting characters into their specific roles, along with a slightly less rough idea of how they'll play. Last time, I set a few rules for myself, and honestly, I'm tossing those out completely. I'm just gonna talk characters I want and nothing else. Look, if Jeff the Landshark can get in, I feel like a vast majority of Marvel characters are now possible. And besides, now all those obvious picks I talked about are confirmed. Well, except for one. Anyway, let's stop wasting time and get into my second round of characters. Oh, and also, I'll be referring to each role as the kind of common phrasing, because remembering the specific names like Vanguard requires slightly more brain power than I have active right now. So, while last time I said I would avoid the obvious picks, that was before Deadpool and Wolverine came out. And since he is still unannounced to be in the game, I kind of figure he's in this safe exception gray area. Like, we all know he'll be in eventually, but I also like talking about Wolverine, so we're gonna go with it anyway. As for a possible kit, he'd be a DPS character with little to no projectile-based attacks. Well, except for himself. See, for those who have played the Wolverine Origins game, which I recommend by the way, he has this pounce attack that he can use to close the distance between him and the enemy, and I think that would be so much fun in the game like this. So instead of having a projectile, he is the projectile. Make that his primary movement ability, kind of like Spidey's web swing or Venom's also web swing. Like, imagine this. A little Canadian man launching himself towards you at insane speeds. His other ability could be some form of tracking, like kind of think Bloodhound from Apex Legends, for example. As for his healing factor, I'd imagine just kind of let him heal outside of combat. That'd be good enough, right? Another thing I want to add, in the last video I mentioned that him and Colossus should have the fastball special as their team-up move, and that still applies here, but if Colossus doesn't get in, give it to Hulk. Come on, it'd be cool. My boy, my sweet baby boy Nightcrawler, look at him. You know, I'm really glad that X-Men 97 exists, if not just to solely show off the fact that the X-Men are literally the sickest team in Marvel. Anyway, Nightcrawler. He's not my favorite X-Men, but man is he up there. And since it's a confirmed fact that you can never have too many mutants in a Marvel game, anyone who says otherwise is wrong, factually wrong. I'm telling you, they're wrong. I feel like Nightcrawler would be a really fun choice for this type of game. I didn't really think of anything super in-depth for his moveset, but I was kind of envisioning he could be a support character, with his main gimmick being teleporting around and, you know, being a nuisance to literally everyone else. Like, imagine your teammate is getting ganged up on, right? Bamf in there, grab him, bamf out. Alternatively, bamf your enemies into that one pit on the Asgard control map. To anyone who has played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I hope you see my vision for how annoying he could be. Anyway, I really like this idea for him, and it's honestly the entire reason I wanted to talk about him. I do love Nightcrawler, and I just want to see him in more things, man. Yeah, it's kind of obvious, but there's a lot of X-Men characters on this list. And I'll give you a little spoiler alert, there is one more later down in the list, but then we're completely done with X-Men characters, I promise. Anyway, Juggernaut is like perfect for a tank character in this game. I'd even say he should be the de facto tank character if he gets in. The game has destructible environments, he's the Juggernaut, do the math. Anyway, I was envisioning him to be a character that takes full advantage of the destructible side of things. Like, let him pick up pieces of rubble and throw them for an ability. Like, that sort of thing. But anyway, let's get to the main gimmick I want, right? I want his primary ability to be his charge sprint, that the more momentum you get and the more speed you build up, the tankier you become, and you deal more damage, right? Kind of like a mixture of Reinhardt's charge and Wrecking Ball from Overwatch, if that makes sense to anyone who's played that game. Obviously, in theory, that is super OP, so maybe make the charge harder to steer the more momentum you get. Anyway, that pretty much covers my X-Men picks, aside from that one more later down in the list. Alright, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. This one is 100% a sneak pick, and I'm just doing this just to make me happy. You see, when they announced Absolute Doom for Fortnite, Gwenpool was announced as one of the skins that would be in that battle pass, and that reminded me, oh, I need to read her stuff, and thus I did. So as of making this video, I am still currently reading Unbelievable Gwenpool, and she's already skyrocketed to one of my favorite Marvel characters in a long time. As for her moves, I was kind of just envisioning a DPS character. I'm sure someone much more creative than me could think of something really cool to do for her comic knowledge gimmick, but I was kind of thinking maybe let her see the cooldowns of the enemy team for like their different abilities and ultimates and whatnot. Just kind of like to reflect the fact she knows everything about comic books. At least Marvel comic books. I'm sure NetEase could probably cook something way more fitting than me, but yeah. My biggest request though, if she gets in, is to get a cute team up with Jeff. I love that little guy. You know, those two, they're like perfect together. That's their whole thing. Let them have a team up ability, please. Also, just give me more Jeff. Why is Jeff not marketed? I'm just saying, I want a plushie of Jeff, please. Alright, this one's my last X-Men character, I promise. And honestly, this one's less led by a strong idea I had for a gimmick, and more because I really want to see what kind of design NetEase would cook up for Sinister. Like, imagine him in the art style. He'd look insanely cool, right? Anyway, I'm less confident in a moveset for this pick, but I'll try anyway. I was kind of thinking he'd be a support character with the ability to enhance the DNA of his allies while weakening the enemy. Stuff like decreasing cooldowns, increasing health amount on a teammate, poison damage, you know, that kind of thing. Imagine a mix between Moira and Zenyatta from Overwatch. I wanted to include his clones in here somewhere for a gimmick, but the idea I had for him kind of got changed into something for a different character down the line in the list. So if anyone watching this has a cool idea for a Sinister moveset, let me know. I'd love to see what everyone envisions. Alright, this is now the portion of the video where I go completely self-serving with my picks. Because Annihilus is one of my all-timers for favorite Marvel villains, and I really don't think people talk about him enough. He's basically a cosmic bug Skeletor, and I love him. Anyway, he'd be a tank with his gimmick almost being entirely reliant on the cosmic control rod. I'd envision him being able to absorb damage and then reflect it back out with a temporary buff to his stats. Imagine Sigma from Overwatch, but instead of giving him shields, the damage goes into a meter that he can use whenever. Maybe depending on the amount of energy stored up, it'd affect how powerful the buff is. To show that I love him, this is the only character that I thought about an ultimate for. I'd imagine his ultimate would be that he opens a portal to the negative zone on an area, and any enemy stuck inside the area when it's unleashed would receive poison damage and overall become a squishier character. Honestly, I just wanted a paragraph to gush about Annihilus. I love this dude. Let me cook here, but surely more Hulk characters deserve a spot, right? Like, outside of comic books, what representation has Hulk's villains gotten? Abomination is barely in the MCU. It took 16 years to get the leader into a movie, and I don't think I've even seen anything from Zack since Earth's Mightiest Heroes. There's no love for any of these guys, so Rivals feels like a good place to reintroduce some of these characters to a larger audience. Honestly, I don't have a concrete moveset for him, although I do have a few rough ideas. He'd be a DPS, and for his primary attack it'd be his Wrecking Ball, and it'd work pretty much exactly like Bridget's primary in Overwatch. His main ability though is absorbing materials, so obviously let's reflect that. Let's say he can touch the ground and gain a standard defense buff to his health. Kinda boring on its own, right? But you see, this is where I'm cooking. Let's give him a team-up move with the vast majority of heroes on the roster by letting him absorb a material associated with the different heroes to gain different stats. For example, if he touches Thor's hammer, he gains the ability to be conductive to Thor and Storm's lightning. If he touches a piece of Magneto's metal, he can gain an incoming damage decrease, with a portion of the damage he takes converting into the metal Magneto's heavy shot uses. That sort of thing. It could be super OP or underpowered. I don't know, I just think it'd be a neat gimmick. Alright, this one is probably the one people will disagree with, not because of the character himself, but because of what I'm envisioning for him. Before I explain, I want to say this choice is also influenced by Fortnite, mainly because it got me thinking about how much I like Mysterio. And I mean, it really got me thinking. I kind of realized Mysterio actually might be my favorite Spider-Man villain. Like, I really like Green Goblin, but he's kind of a standard pick. Venom's not really a Spider-Man villain anymore, and Carnage leans more into being a Venom villain, which then leaves Mysterio. And then it also hit me how stoked I was that Mysterio was going to be in the Spider-Man 2 game, and then I realized Fishbowl Head might be him. He might be that guy. Anyway, back to the main topic. I'd envision him as a support. Healing wouldn't be his main focus, but for the sake of some realism, let's say that the alt fire of his main attack would be a healing shot. But the main thing he'd do is illusions. And this is where I'm probably going to be hailed as a madman, but I want Mysterio to really screw with the enemy team. Like, imagine if he could disguise himself or teammates as different characters. For example, make your tank teammate look like one of the support characters and watch the chaos ensue. Or something where he could spawn decoys, and if the decoy is destroyed, it would buff nearby allies. That sort of thing. Obviously, there's a lot of problems you need to work out to make this kit actually balanced in-game, but I'm sure NetEase could pull it off. But basically make him a fusion between Spy from Team Fortress 2 and Mirage from Apex Legends. And I know Loki is the trickster character, and while he is so much fun to play, I want to go even deeper into playing mind games with the enemy, and Mysterio's, he's that guy. And I'm super biased, so... Hey, so remember how in the first wishlist video, I joked about how Doom's kit might work better for Ultron? Yeah, well, I was right. Honestly, on the topic of Ultron, he is the de facto Avengers villain in my eyes. My first major exposure to Ultron as a character was in the animated series Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and man, after that, he easily became one of my all-time favorites. He's not quite up there with Doom and Annihilus, but he is definitely close. There's just something so interesting about an AI character that despises humanity, yet fails to acknowledge the fact that he shares those exact same faults with humanity. He's cold and logical, but at his core he is human, and Hank Pym is the thing for that. Originally, this is the part of the script where I had it written down that I think the MCU wasted his potential by killing him off in his first outing, but, that's some really funny timing, eh? I envision him as a DPS character with the ability to summon Ultron drones as turrets. Kind of like what Loki does with his decoys, but instead they're completely automated. Maybe Ultron can also have the ability to change the function of his drones, like have one patrol a specific area to look for enemies while another drone acts as a turret. Basically, I want to play an RTS as Ultron. Like I said, I originally had this idea for Doom in the last video, which now makes that entry kind of null, right? Well... Did I just use the most elaborate method known to man to talk about Dr. Doom again? Yes. Yes, I did. Do not forget, true believers, these videos are a poorly disguised excuse for me to gush about comic characters I love, and man do I love Doom. In fact, since the last video dropped, Doom's kinda re-entered the spotlight. He's currently the main villain of Fortnite. Now he's 100% the main villain of this game. In fact, he's the main villain of this game twice. And man, there's something else that happened with Doom, but I can't seem to remember what it was. Oh well. Anyway, now that we got an official look at Doom, it'd be easier to identify what role he would be in By Galactus he is a big boy. They're both big boys, in fact. So he'd obviously be a tank. Honestly, I just want to take a second to fanboy about this design because it is so cool, man. I love how huge he is. He reminds me of a Space Marine. I love it. Anyway, with the Doombot mechanic now being something I'd give to Ultron, what could we give Doom? He's got an insane amount of things we can pull from. He's got magic, tech, and... Look, I'll just cut to the chase. I now unironically want Foot Dive as an ability. Look, if Fortnite can do it, so can they. Besides, we already have MVC2 Venom as a skin, so it's not a huge stretch to say that it's possible. And we can still give him the Doombot gimmick in a way, too. Make it that when Doom is eliminated, it turned out to be a Doombot, and he has a reduced respawn time or something, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure you all noticed that this was his majority villains, and that was actually planned, because I'm about to make it even with one quick segment. So by my count, we need about, let's see here, 4 hero characters. I wonder how we can possibly find 4 Yero. Okay, this is going to be more of a segment than an actual concept, but I wanted to talk about it anyway. I feel like a lot of people don't really understand the importance of the Fantastic Four in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Doom. Like, they're intertwined. You can't really do Doom justice without the four. Like, look at Hickman's Secret Wars. Sure, it's got a lot of multiverse stuff, but at its core, it's about Dr. Doom and Reed Richards. So it's wild to me that none of the four are announced as characters yet. Maybe they're saving all 4 of them for a big announcement, I'm not sure honestly, but out of any characters that need to be in Rivals, it's them. Also, this part I'm ad-libbing, but Marvel also apparently loves killing the Fantastic Four now. Look at Fortnite, for example, and other things, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we'll speed past this part because they're pretty obvious for roles, but Reed and Johnny would be DPS, Sue fits support, and Ben fits tank. My main point here, though, is it'd be criminal to have a multiverse-based Doom story without at least involving Reed a little bit, even more so with there being 2 Dooms as the villains. Anyway, that was another wishlist. If this one does well, I'll probably do at least 1 more of these closer to the game's launch. Like I've said, I'm going to be covering this game a lot going forward, so expect a lot of Marvel Rivals in the future. Oh, and another topic. We are officially starting to get close to hitting the 1K mark, so I'm going to start pushing for this goal a bit more. So if you've enjoyed this, please give me a follow and let me know what other kinds of videos you'd like to see. I'd really appreciate that sort of advice. Oh, and another thing. I've lined up some cool ways to support the channel. First of all, I'm now an affiliate for Poggers. So if you're needed some energy, hydration, or even sleep, and you're interested in supporting me, make sure to either use code EuroPoggers at checkout or use the link in the description. The other one is more of a hobby, but I do a lot of drawing in my spare time, and I figured I'd put up a few of my better art pieces for sale as prints and stickers on Redbubble. I'll be updating it over time to include even more, so if you'd like to pick up a few, go check that out. Anyway, enough talk. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and don't forget, there is a non-0% chance that we get Sauron in this game at some point. It's entirely possible.